So if you're fighting each other and you have a if I was smart, if I was a legit fighting game content creator, I would have a fighting game pulled up and then like I'd run through the moves and show you. But instead, I'm going to be using my fingers here. So are we discussing people having issue being motivated or the effects of learning? They may go hand in hand. Yeah, that's a good point because at this point with the way I'm rambling, I'm not 100% sure. But I do think it is connected. I think the original premise I had was, can you or can you not learn from fighting game pros? And the basic idea is you can learn from anything if you really want to. And then crossing over to the territory that even though there are pillars of the fighting game community, so the example I used was FDX with Tekken, I don't know if he is going to be the best person to learn from as a beginner for Tekken. There are plenty of people who have gravitated toward him. There was the Sage Am Slam where you had other content creators and influencers pair up with different teams, and a handful of them were on his team. Lily Pichu being probably the most notable, and she entered EVO and played at EVO for the first time and had maybe not her ideal results, but man, for like somebody who's only been playing Tekken for a couple months, like amazing, right? Truly amazing. I think in the ideal situation, when you want to learn and then you have motivation to learn and your other factors are influencing that, right? But it's putting you in this loop to keep going. That's the ideal situation. But the hard thing is when you lose that motivation. Let me take a step back. Let me talk about fitness again. Sorry. That's always the easy go-to. If you have motivation to go work out, to lose weight, to get in shape, to clean up your diet, all that stuff, that is awesome. That's a catalyst, it could be, or that's like the extra sauce. But if you only rely on motivation, like I'm only going to eat clean when I'm motivated, I'm only going to go work out when I'm motivated, you're really screwing yourself over for the long term, because the truth is you're not always going to be motivated. And that was like my biggest beef with the fitness industry, with people who are in fitness who say that they're always motivated, #motivation. That is setting yourself up for failure, because the truth is there are plenty of fitness professionals, they would rather be doing something else, anything else. They do it because they might have more love and passion than the average person. That's true. But you don't do things that you don't always do things that you have love and passion for. Like the way that I try to teach it to people, and it's like very unsexy and it makes a lot of sense why it doesn't register with a lot of people, is you got to distill it down lower. Like try to treat fitness and eating quote unquote clean like brushing your teeth, where are you psyched? Are you out of your mind in love with brushing your teeth? I don't know, man. Like maybe you could be. And if you are that person, more power to you. But, like on a bad day when you're tired, you're sad, you're thinking about other stuff, you're distracted, you can still do the bare minimum of brushing your teeth, right? So for long-term results, if you can find ways or like aspects of fitness to do the same thing, you're going to be for the better on it. We'll find a way to connect it here with fighting games in a second, but let me see here. Keobastien talking about positive reinforcement, like seeing numbers go up, seeing some kind of progression system goes a long way. And that's why it makes a lot of sense, again, using the fitness example, people tie that to the scale. Hey, that's a number. Hey, the number's moving in a certain direction. But just because the number on the scale doesn't change, does that mean that you're actually not making any progress? That's the problem there. So we can take that and I think apply that to fighting games also. Okay, well, maybe your win-loss ratio still gives you a percentage that's far from ideal. Like, whoa, I'm only winning 40% of my matches. I think that's a easy one to use. But if you rewatched your replays and you compared them, are you making smarter choices? And we'll talk about what smarter choices means here in a second. I think the tough thing with content creation and also teaching and education, like you can put stuff out there that on an intellectual level sounds right, sounds good, sounds smart. And in certain contexts, that would be the thing. But for your average person, or the reality of your common man or woman or person, it's just not applicable. That's not the reality of like what most people are going through. And for me, I'm going to throw my 2 cents again. I'm going to say that anti-airing, while a good thing to know and have, I don't think anti-airing pays dividends like so many fighting game content creators make it out to be. But there's a reversal of that, and it's something that Brian F. talked about that I will include. John's FGC Awakening things. No, I don't know. Oh, maybe we can just call it the Awakening there. Unnecessary forward movement. So when you start, different games, they'll put you further away. Certain games, they'll let you move around a little bit before the match starts. But let's just say, where's my camera here? We have this neutral space. Okay, so here's my opponent, and here's me. I'm always going. And to fight, to interact so you don't whiff. Whiff means like you're throwing a button and like there's nothing for it to connect to. Of course, you have to be closer. But I'm just bull rushing. Like, rushing forward when you have a strategy, you have an idea of what you want to do, that can be part of your game plan. And that there's an archetype called rush down characters that you have to move forward. You have to be closing that distance. But there's a difference between closing the distance with a plan and just moving forward for no reason. You're just always holding forward. A big problem with always holding forward means you're never going to be blocking, right? So hand in hand with that, and this was my advice my friend gave me at the time, was you need to practice blocking. And of course, I didn't, because who wants to go in training mode and practice blocking for even 10 minutes, right? But what we can glean from this, and what we can comment on at least, is, did I even have the awareness that, oh, instead of just moving, instead of always being on the offense, do I have any concept of defense whatsoever? No. So what else can go in with defense? Well, hey, if I act like I'm moving forward and I stop, and this causes him to push buttons and he's whiffing, whoa, that's an opportunity for me to attack, right? That's awareness of spacing. Especially, I mean, spacing is important in all fighting games, but for some reason, I feel like it's even more pertinent with 3D fighters. Hey, if I'm not moving forward, if I just stand here and if I just hold back, I wait for him to come to me, that's a different strategy too. And both of these elements, being a little bit more aware, there's another added benefit to not just mindlessly moving, and that's whittling down the clock. So you can win by KOing your opponent, right? But you can also win with a timeout where you have the health, you have the bigger health. That's a strategy playing lame. I will credit Samurai Showdown with really kind of instilling into me like the concept of like trying to run out the clock. So spacing, leave the gap or close the gap. So when there's distance between us, is it my responsibility to close that? Or can I wait for my opponent to come to me? Or can we kind of just like hang here? If I'm not going to block, what are my other defensive options? Certain fighting games, your character might have a runaway ability. Your character might be able to parry. Your character might have an armor move. You know, if I was smart, if I was a legit fighting game content creator, I would have a fighting game pulled up and then like I'd run through the moves and show you. But instead, I'm going to be using my fingers here. Who's attacking? My turn to attack. If he's attacking, but I use an armor move that allows me to take 2 or 3 hits, and I can still take my turn back, or I can still do damage. It's a risk reward, right? Like I'll still receive a little bit of damage, but I'm still going to be dishing out way more. And that's a risk that you can take. Unnecessary jumping. This is the other point that was in Brian F's video. And I think this is the companion piece to anti-airing. So you might not know how to anti-air, but that's an opportunity that you didn't capitalize when your opponent was jumping too much. What you can learn from opponent who's jumping too much is maybe you shouldn't be jumping so much. Like, if I'm just always jumping forward and my opponent is good at anti-airing, like my opponent always catches me when I try to jump in, that's going to make me scared to jump in, right? Or I need to respect that, meaning don't give him the chance to easily eat away at my health in that moment. You can't always respect. Like, sometimes you are going to have to jump in, right? But just being a little bit cognizant of, well, I don't know my buttons. I don't know all my moves. So I'm always holding forward. I'm always holding the diagonal and jumping in. That cannot be the main staple of your arsenal. The sky's the limit with how much you want to optimize. What's the best move for this situation? What's the best punish? Like, how do I handle this character in the best way? And if you enjoy learning moves that way, power to you. But I think with my time playing fighting games as a kid, I always had this attitude. I identify cool moves. I intrinsically want to use them. So instead of thinking like, hey, these are the best moves for this character and you should use them for A, B, C situation, when I'm going through the move list, I'm already judging this is cool, this is not cool. Nobody has to teach me that. And what I think is cool might not be cool for other people. But I go in with the attitude. Just like certain people gravitate towards certain characters, I gravitate towards certain moves in their arsenal. Man, this move, half the time I'll gravitate to a move. It's like, whoa, that looks cool, but I can see why it would be useless. Or I see a move, I'm like, how would I ever use this move? But then for me, that's part of the fun. Instead of thinking, okay, let's use the example again. If someone's jumping in, I need to know how to anti-air. Problem solution like that, right? I have way more fun thinking, man, what situations can I get away with hitting my opponent with this move? And if it's a really bad move, I'm probably going to get punished most of the time. But if I can find instances where I can hit my opponent with it, whether or not I win the round, I win the set, I'm able to rank up or not, man, that is so fun. That is much better than all that stuff. And that works for me. So, of course, I think it's going to make sense when other people want to win the set, they want to rank up and improve in that way. But if you can find ways to have fun, like if this is not making concessions to losing, ideally, I can hit my opponent repeatedly with a stupid move and win the round and win the set. That will be the most satisfying. I'm not saying just go in and like, hey, you're going to lose 30 times in a row, but you did the move that was your favorite move. That's not what I'm saying either. Like somewhere in the middle, right? But if you can find ways to quantify and qualify your fighting game experience outside of just the wins and losses, I think you're going to be better off. Likewise, if you can find a way to assess your fitness condition outside of the scale. Okay, well, the scale might not have moved the needle on the surface, but do you feel better? You have more energy? Do you see the muscle tone coming in? Are you lifting heavier weights? Are other people noticing things in you? Do you notice your clothes fitting better? All of those things. Like, are you having less headaches? Like, are you sleeping better at night? Like, there's so much that can go into it. And because some people get so caught up on certain talking points, or because they're so down on themselves, that stuff isn't really explored enough on the fighting game side. I don't think any of these threads are connecting on the sheet the way that they should, but I'm glad that I took this time and space to just kind of like get these thoughts out there. I want to give props again to Keobastien for contributing. Maybe we'll go back to one thing that he said, about memorizing. So I think finding your favorite moves, that definitely helps me with Tekken. Like, it's very interesting to me that with Tekken 7, I kind of made it a routine. Like, when I was learning a character, I would drill their move list. Like, I had no problem pulling up training mode, hitting the buttons, because you could pin the move list at the top of the screen and cycle with the R1, L1 buttons to go to the next move. You could even watch a demo, and I'd go through that a few times. I think that was my approach with Dead or Alive also. I haven't done that at all with Tekken 8, I guess because I have been able to carry over some legacy knowledge with the characters that I've been playing. But even when I was learning Lydia, or just messing around with Lydia most recently, the latest Tekken 8 character, I think the combo challenges have been enough to get like a sense of what I can potentially do with the character. Of course, I'm probably still missing out like a third or half of their move list. But again, I have some spacing awareness. I have some movement awareness. Like I can see this opportunity where I can interrupt my opponent, or I know how to take my turn. Then each time I'm going to take my turn, for sure, I'm going to do at least 54 damage in Tekken with these combo setups. Maybe we can say the move list memorization is much harder with 3D fighters, but the situational memorization in 2D fighters is tougher, I think. Which might sound contradictory because you can sidestep in 3D fighting games. You have the additional plane and axis that you have to worry about. But usually with the 3D fighters, your speed's a little bit slower. And maybe that's why it's more manageable for me. A lot of these 2D, especially the anime 2D fighters, or, man, I know I did a stream before talking about how excited I am for the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection to come out. But I think I'll be sticking with that single player for a while as I get brought up to speed, literally, with the mechanics of that game. Another awakening is really picking favorites characters. I think to the average, well, not average, for many people who are trying to learn fighting games seriously, where they pick their main and it's going to be one or two, I still kind of rotate through like a handful. Going with a handful versus naively saying, oh, I mastered every character as a kid because I beat arcade mode with every single character, you know. That's playing every character in that way. That gives you exposure, you know. Okay, certain moves for certain characters, like these are some of the possibilities and opportunities that they have. But a real proper sense of that character, I don't think you're going to get until like you stick with them for at least a week, right? And a week can be arbitrary because a week can still mean just like an hour and a half for certain people. I'll cut this up, put a version of this conversation out on YouTube. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. Maybe as I stream, will I be able to stream all 5 weekdays this week? We'll see. But that's going to be the plan, to revisit some of this. Maybe we can, with this said and out there, maybe I can show footage to kind of back up some of these concepts and just kind of like further build and reinforce this here. Because this is essentially the brainstorming of it, right? Just like gabbing, getting loosely the darts on the board, but we can keep refining it, keep sharpening it. I mean, that's part of the cycle too with any kind of learning. Have the main concept, sharpen it further, and as you zoom in, as you hone it, maybe we got to trim the fat. Maybe completely off base. Maybe we got to say F this whole thing and start from scratch again. That's possible too. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. So again, that's going to be it for this stream. Everybody stay hydrated. It has been freaking hot.